Ja, Gamescom. PIXL VISN live hier in unserem schönen PIXL VISN Wohnzimmer, in unserem Living Room. Wir sind jetzt hier bei unserem letzten Stream für heute angekommen. Ich hoffe, ihr habt halt vorher schon reingeschaut. Falls ihr noch nicht die Zeit gehabt habt, heute reinzuschauen, ich stelle mich noch mal kurz vor. Mein Name ist Stephan Bücker. Ich bin Senior Advisor bei PIXL VISN, bin zuständig für die Bildungsberatung hier bei uns und für die Beratung von den Interessenten als auch von den Bewerbern. Ich mache das mit meinem Kollegen Dominik zusammen. Das bedeutet eben, wir führen halt auch die Interviews. Wenn man sich bei uns bewerben möchte, hat man automatisch mit mir zu tun oder meinem Kollegen Dominik. Wer sind wir überhaupt? Wer ist PIXL VISN? PIXL VISN ist eine 3D Animation und Visual Effects Privatschule. Also wir bilden im Bereich 3D-Animation und Visual Effects aus. Wenn ihr euch mal Kinofilme angeschaut habt, euch mit Videospielen beschäftigt habt, habt ihr immer mit 3D zu tun. 3D Visual Effects in Filmen, gutes Beispiel die Marvel-Filme, Avengers, gutes Beispiel, wie so Effekte zustande kommen. Das kriegt man zum Beispiel hier gelernt. Das Gleiche halt im Großen und Ganzen halt auch mit Animation, wie man die Figur bewegt, wie man die lebendig werden lässt. Auch das kriegt man bei uns beigebracht. Das erlernt man in 15 Monaten. Wir bieten eine Intensivausbildung an. Intensivausbildung bedeutet eben die erfolgreichste Ausbildungsmethode aus den USA und Kanada. Unsere beiden Gründer selber kommen ursprünglich aus Kanada. Deswegen da auch der Bezug so ein bisschen zur Gamescom. Die beiden hatten die Idee, nämlich beim Call of Duty Spielen die Schule zu gründen. Wir sind jetzt selber bei PIXL VISN seit 10 Jahren als aktiver Aussteller auf der Gamescom dabei gewesen, waren immer hier auf der Gamescom vertreten, können natürlich jetzt leider nicht live vor Ort sein, diesmal in Köln-Deutz, weil es dieses Jahr die Gamescom nur digital gibt, aber wir haben uns gedacht, wir bieten einen coolen Livestream für euch an, um euch so ein bisschen über das Thema Videospiele, über das Thema 3D Animation, Visual Effects was zu erklären, wie das Ganze funktioniert, was man bei uns erlernt, wie es ist, in die Branche zu gehen. Das hatten wir in den vorherigen Talks. Ja, im Großen und Ganzen begrüße ich dann auch schon mal unseren ersten Gast und I'm very happy to introduce the one and only Moses. Nice to meet you. Moses, you're an instructor at our academy, also a teacher. How are you doing?
Doing fine. Thank you, Stephan, for the
You're
intro.
doing fine. Okay.
Yes.
Then we have another guest. I'd like to introduce Justin Mohlman. He is our texturing instructor at PIXL VISN. Justin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
You're doing great. How?
I get to like be dressed up like Moses, except for I get to wear shorts up on him.
The classical video stream outfit.
It's the proper work attire.
Yeah, it's a proper work attire, yeah. Yeah, we will speak a little bit about video games in general, about you, about Moses. So basically I want to start with you, Justin. You're a veteran in the video game industry. I looked at your CV and it's so long, I can fill the whole room with it. And you worked on several well-known games, like people loved it. I love the series, for example, Mortal Kombat, or Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, X-Men Origins. I played it on Xbox 360, and now you're working for Epic Games as a game development producer. But introduce this to us, and in which roles you worked on this project, for example.
Yeah, no, I've been. I got lucky. I started early in game development, mainly because I think I always knew that I wanted to work in visual effects or video games ever since like Jurassic Park and Star Wars and Terminator, and then when I got my first Nintendo. But I kind of fell into games because I went to college to learn how to do animation, and then the first job I got offered was while I was still in college, because my instructor at the time worked at an industry studio, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to work here?" So I started working on PlayStation 1. That's how old I am.
Oh, that's real old school. Yeah. I like that.
I mean, it was a port. It was a PlayStation 2 game, but I still was porting something to PlayStation 1. But it's been crazy now working on things for PlayStation 5. Just seeing, this is my 18th year. But just seeing the past 18 years, like I know we're gonna talk about Unreal 5 and stuff later, but like just seeing the progression of technology. But no, I got lucky. Like I've worked on so many weird titles that I didn't think I'd be able to. Like there's like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory one. It was interesting because we got to meet with Tim Burton. We got to like see his concept art and everything like that. At small studios that we were just churning out content all the time. Like this one studio I worked at, we did the Family Guy game, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Jackass, and a bunch of other ones. And then I moved over to Midway, and I got to work on the Mortal Kombat series. I worked on like 3 to 4 games. I say 3 to 4 because the studio was kind of closing, and then it got bought by Warner Brothers when I was leaving, and then that's when I went up to Activision. But when I was on the Mortal Kombat games, I was working on anything from cinematics to environments, props, like the arenas, as an environment modeler, texture artist, propping, lighting, and it was rad just to be someone that I remember like growing up, riding my bike like at least 5 miles to play Mortal Kombat on the arcade, and then to be sitting in the same room with the guy who creates it, and like just hearing how the new characters and stuff gets set up was awesome. I loved the team, I loved everything, but unfortunately, like I ended up leaving because Midway was closed, and then it ended up getting bought by Warner Brothers. So that's when I bounced over to Activision up north, and I got to work on a bunch of different titles. I touched Wolfenstein. I say touch because I got there and I just worked on it for like 2 weeks. Then I jumped on the X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was fun because when I was at I got to start working on the Unreal 3 engine, because that was the thing that brought me to there, because I was super excited. We were working on this game called Stranglehold at the time, which was one of the very first new technology games, which was like...
I know Stranglehold. I played Stranglehold, especially with this motion and
the mass destruction and like that.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was such a crazy jump from PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3. We're just seeing like normal maps, and people were blown away. So when I went over to Activision, it was just like another increase in technology, seeing how they're using the Unreal Engine while we were working on the Origin. And I started working on this game called Singularity, which kind of floated underneath the radar due to Destiny and Call of Duty, but it was a pretty rad game. I don't know if anyone ever played Singularity, but I was like, oh shit. Visually and like everything we were doing, I think it was ahead of its time, but it got overshadowed by Destiny and Call of Duty. And then I got called back to Chicago because Activision was, I did a small thing with EA Chicago, which was working on Fight Night and Def Jam, Fight for New York, and all those fun games. But then they ended up getting dissolved and went back over to EA Vancouver. But the people who are left from there, and some of the people who are left from Midway and Activision, we created a new studio that Activision was working with called Robomoto.
Yeah.
It was fun. I mean, like, that was the first time I was actually with a studio from the ground up. And when I was, like, I remember just being...
Okay, now we're seeing our stream had a little bit technical issues, but never mind. We have another guest, and Moses is able to introduce himself to our audience. You have also a very interesting career path, especially you are a full-blood artist. Yeah, you mentioned it before when we talked a little bit before our stream, but tell me a little bit more about yourself, about your career path. Usually you are also original from the USA.
Yes.
Yeah, so tell us.
So I'm born in Jackson, Mississippi. I grew up there, and until age 17, I grew up on a farm. And until age 17, I had not had a well-rounded view of the world, only through the encyclopedias. You know, I'm 42 years old. And what I can say about world travel is that as a person who's interested in visuals, looking into the encyclopedias before the internet was out there, there was no internet. So your inspiration comes through the images that you can find through magazines, encyclopedias, the books that you read. And so this journey started at a very young age. You know, I've been drawing all my life, and this path, getting out of Mississippi, it came through education. And I can just tell everyone, learn as much as you can. And during this, you say, career path, you know, as a young child, I did not know that I was going to be an artist. I was always drawing. It was nothing new to me. It was nothing that I needed to write stories about or tell anyone. You know, I'm just drawing. And little by little, as I completed certain programs and got scholarships for my bachelor's degree, I studied in Spain, I studied in Paris, I studied in California. You know, you're having things that are just paid for, and you're given you're given the full ride, basically. Yeah. And so this all came into a development that led me to move to Europe, I would say, because seeing the path of previous artists that I was reading about in the encyclopedias led me to want to live in those countries.
Yeah, you want to have this experience for yourself, to see what's it's like living in this country, to see the art, to get the inspiration, to feel the art.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
So, that was also the step that you make the move from the USA to Italy. You were in Italy.
Yes, so I had a chance. After I finished my bachelor's degree, you must jump on the next moving train. So I applied with 2 programs, that's SACI in Florence and American University from Washington, D.C., who had a 2-year program in Rome, basically touring all of Italy and taking in that experience. And so, of course, I was accepted by both universities, the Academy in Florence and in Rome. So I accepted the program which lasted the longest, which was in Rome. And so being based in Rome and moving all over Italy, walking down the same streets as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Pontormo, Caravaggio, all of the great masters in the Renaissance art. So it was just a great experience to take that on as well.
Okay, so Moses, now this is also interesting. So your mantra, I would say, is everything is a story. I like that. Yeah. I like that very much. So that's basically the good thing, because you're teaching storyboarding at our school. Could you give us a basic idea what storyboarding is?
Well, I think about it all the time, and what I try to motivate the students that I would say mentoring or motivating is that storyboarding is your life. Yeah. We all have a story inside of us. All of our personal experiences affect what we do and how we create, what motivates us to move in a certain direction or to find things good or bad. It's based on our life experiences. And so when I tell them storyboarding is your life, you bring in your personal connections with a certain story that you've been given, and in order to create those compositions, those first pre-visuals, that's what storyboarding is about. It's creating those pre-visuals for the cameraman or camera woman who will have to see through your eye, basically by looking at these small drawings that you've created in a row to tell the story. You're coming from within yourself based on how you've read the story, based on what you've been told about it, and what is the trajectory of that story, what is the outcome, the overall goal of a certain story. And so each artist has to bring a bit of themselves into it, whether it be in creating an environment, character design, mood as far as color, and overall sound and ambiance. Yes, so storyboarding is that area where once you've created those sketches, they can no longer be unseen. What that storyboard artist has placed into existence. Okay. When I'm in front of the students at PIXL VISN, I'm not sitting down. I'm jumping around and acting it out for 2 hours, because that's the energy I bring, and that's what I think they need when they're having so many different courses and so many different influences. It's just to give them that inspiration to put all of that energy that they get from storyboarding into the other factors of what they're learning here at PIXL VISN. Yeah.
Okay, that's a very good insight to have it. We're seeing now Justin is back. The technical issues are solved.
Yes.
Welcome back, Justin.
He's out of the void.
But never mind. Okay, I will go a little bit forward. Never mind. Basically, what I like to know is you worked as an environment artist. Then you become a lead environment artist. So what do you say? We learned it also a little bit before with character artist, lead character artist. What's the main difference when you become a lead? When you have You're responsible for things, for a team.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, everything actually that Moses is saying too is actually what helps you become a lead. A lead is someone who not like. There's a lot of good environment artists and character artists and like design. Everyone at the normal level, and you work long enough, you jump from the junior to the mid level. From the mid level, if you don't want to be a lead, you can be staff or senior. When you get to the lead, you're kind of not only creating content, you're creating content by example. So you have to establish the quality bar and the consistency. Like, hey, when are things set up? When are things being delivered? They listen to you if you are that like example that they should strive to be. So there's a lot of pressure in that sense. But I like talking. I like playing video games and I like seeing movies, yeah. But I'm like Moses, like I love to travel. Like I've been all over Europe, all over the United States, and I'm a sucker for architecture and history and stories and all that stuff. And it's made me more of a well-rounded artist because I haven't done just that. So when I jumped into the lead position, I found myself at a bunch of studios being in charge of hiring and building my teams. And I was more driven towards someone's personality as opposed to like how amazing they were skill-wise. Because for me, being part of a lead is going to see how the team all works together. And the team's only as good as its weakest link. And sometimes its weakest link could be someone who's insanely talented software and tech skill-wise, but they lack all communication skills. They have no personality. Their breadth of inspiration is they go home and play games for like 8 hours every single night. That's great, but you're not living life. And when you bring to your creativity and how you communicate is not really that much. Mm-hmm. And I'd rather take someone who has this enthusiasm and zest for life, someone who's like, you know what, I traveled this weekend, or I tried, this woodworking workshop, and you just have more like variety to you.
More influence, more to get more creative. Yeah,
exactly.
Like that, right?
Yeah, you have more creativity and your idea is a little more original, even if they're not original from like you're not creating something that someone's never heard of before. You understand how things are built, put together. You understand why. And to speak what Moses was saying about story, it's like I every single asset, even down to just a coffee cup, has story to it. Like you can see like how someone like grabbed it. Maybe they have a little stain of like where the coffee is. Maybe there's a little crack. Everything has character, but that only happens when you observe the world around you. And no one's really observing the world around you if they're stuck inside playing video games. So for me as a lead, I try to not only make sure that they're creating content on time within the project brief parameters that we have, but I'm also trying to make sure that they communicate, have fun. Like I'm sarcastic, but I like people to have fun, because if you're not having fun and you can't have fun making a game or working on a movie, then when are you going to have fun? Because yes, it's a business, but it's still fun. But also I want to make sure that people are thinking outside the box. And like there'd be times when I was a lead where I'd be like, I'd give people like a full week off, and my only condition was go outside, walk around, go to a museum, go do something, go on a road trip, do something spontaneous. If I give you a week off and you just sit inside and watch TV or play a game, no.
Okay, so basically it's to get more creative influence, to do your job better.
Exactly. Yeah. You're kind of like their. I don't know if it's an American thing. You're like their den mom. You're trying to make sure they're okay. So you're trying to keep them on schedule like a producer, but you're also trying to be like, hey, are you all right? Because when people are working in the industry, they get tunnel vision sometimes, and they're like, I need to get things done. It's like, no, just take a step back, like relax, have some fun. Because I think when you're younger, the idea is to work hard, not smart. Like you're like, if I put in a bunch of hours, I'm going to make this look good. And as you get older, you realize that working smart is you can work way less and still get just as much done, because you're allowing your brain to reset. You're taking care of your physical and mental health. And I think as a lead, that was my main thing, beyond obviously talking to other leads and talking to the directors and whatnot. But yeah, the jump to that was people like my bosses that I worked with just saw that overall I'm just pretty chill, and I'd always get my work done, and I was always doing other things outside of work beyond just this. So they saw that I had more to offer as opposed to just coming in and modeling. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, that makes totally sense. So also you're teaching texturing at PIXL VISN to our students. We have a lot of people who are looking right now to stream, have no basic idea or clue what texturing is. Can you explain it maybe in a simple way? How important is texturing for 3D art, or especially also for video games?
It's just adding surface type. Like right now in the room that you guys are live streaming from, if someone was to go ahead and model all of that, can't hear me? No? I see the hands going.
I can hear you. But...
All right. It's basically just you're adding surface to any of the objects that you're modeling. You're identifying if something is cement or steel or wood. You're identifying like how light reacts to it, because a lot of times light will be absorbed or light will bounce off. That's what texturing really is. You're identifying the surface type.
I'm switching over to you.
He's waiting on you to say something.
Okay, yeah. Maybe let's get a deeper look also inside storytelling again. We'll switch over to Moses.
Did it stop again?
Moses, so what do you say is
it didn't stop, but they've got to.
Is the impact of storytelling to technical or visual creation of a video game?
So, as far as video games are concerned, first of all, a video game, it has a purpose. You have games that are either role-playing games or you have the battle games. In any case, you have these characters that you need to identify with.
Yeah.
And those characters have to have a backstory as well. And I like to compare it to the movie Avatar. You basically zone in on a certain character that you think is something or someone that represents you in that environment. And so with storyboarding in relationship to gaming, keeping the storyline fluent, and if there is a sequel, making sure that you don't lose the energy behind the trajectory, the path of each individual character in a game. In gaming, you have now the possibility in 3D animation to have all these different vantage points.
Yeah.
And so those things need to be taken under the microscope, under the loop, and to see, where can we best show this intro of the game, or where can we best give this character a vantage point over what they have to accomplish. When I look back at The Legend of Zelda and Link, it was just amazing how we looked at one small character and you have this huge map that you would have to conquer, and you were only given one square at a time. And when The Legend of Zelda first came out, you could probably find books, but there was no Wikipedia back then. There was no real connection on how to find people to get you to find that next key to unlock something. So there was more of a community when you played with kids at school. That they would give you tips.
You have an exchange of tips, how you can solve a puzzle.
There were no cell phones. I mean, it sounds like I'm old, but there were no cell phones. You couldn't just call up someone and SMS, hey, this is where you find that and that. You'd basically have to meet up at school again, right, Justin? You'd have to meet up at school and write the codes down on paper and pass it along.
Remember the game guides, like the big game guides that you'd have to read it, and it wasn't like the internet. I loved it, man.
Yeah.
Another thing I loved is when you just brought up Link. That was the first Nintendo game that you could actually save your progress, because up until then, you'd have to always start from the beginning. You had to be.
It was like that.
Yeah.
You left the Nintendo on, and it would get hot by the time you come home from school because you didn't want to lose your place. And then you continue going.
Hide it from your parents.
Yeah. Also. Yeah. So story development, even adding the point where you could pause. That's also a part of storyboarding. We need to develop a way that kids or gamers can save a position and move on from there, because we've lost a lot of time, or if the game turns off, or if the electricity is gone, you have to start all the way back over. And people became a bit pissed off at that, so the technology had to advance. Yeah.
Yeah. So So maybe let's get a little bit deeper. Let's talk about a little bit about Mortal Kombat, because it's also a game with a real special story, with a certain story, with all these rivalries, with all this also a lot of gore, but in this game, it's the player have a personal connection to the characters, because everybody of them has a personal background story. Johnny Cage is a Hollywood actor, for example. Yes. Sonya Blade is a military. Raiden is the god of thunder. Justin, what do you say? How important is this for a video game, to have this personal connection to a character, to see the rivalries? The same example is Street Fighter, when you have this rivalry between Sagat and Ryo, and the scar from Sagat came from the Shoryuken, the Dragon Punch from Ryo. How does this affect the game?
Well, I think there's so many fun stories I have from just sitting in rooms and hearing how they create characters. But I think what made, especially when I was younger, playing Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, and even like Killer Instinct and games like that, was the backstories. Even if they were subtle to begin with, but now obviously the backstories have grown and grown and grown. The series has like exploded. Again, which is great, but the subtle backstories tie into not only the character's visual appearance, and it kind of allows you to kind of like relate to them in some capacity, be like, yeah, this character is more like me, or this character is more like me. And then you feel a personal connection to that character. And when you are fighting with a friend or whatnot, you always have your go-to characters because you feel like you relate more to them and you're your character. And I remember when I was younger and I'd be playing like Mortal Kombat, each person would always have their go-to character, and the other person would be so pissed off that they would always have the same character, because they're like, but there'd just be like, and I remember there's some characters I would pick because I'm like, yeah, it kind of looks like me, or yeah, I kind of like how this, like maybe it's not you, but you enjoy what that character is, because it's like you mentioned Avatar, it's like your wishful avatar of what you would want to be in that scenario. So the storytelling in Mortal Kombat obviously has grown, but back in the day when I was working on it too, like there's still story, but I think it was just, it's that other layer of taking something that is very visual and giving it that backstory. Just it makes it more personal and relatable to the person who's playing it, and there's more of that connection and a drive for them to keep playing and to see the next game, to see where their character evolves to the next series, and so forth and so forth. But if I was taught, like, I could talk more on that, but like for story and character, just in general, man, The Last of Us and my students in the past probably hate how much I talked about that, or Dead Space, because the protagonists and like how relatable they are as characters, and their scenarios weren't like anything super new.
Did you play The Last of Us 2, the part 2, completely through?
I had not played part 2 all the way through, just because I've been swamped. I wanted to. I've seen. I was lucky enough, like through the days. Actually, one of my old bosses at Activision has been over at Naughty Dog for a while. So I've gone and I've visited and I've seen some stuff, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I've seen the reviews, and obviously you see like there's like always, especially with the newer one, there's like this hate between two things now, because that's what happens when you introduce more of a story. There's always going to be someone who doesn't like the story, and there's always someone who loves the story. Yeah, which is great because it opens like a dialogue. But I'm excited to play the second one.
Yeah, I finished the game. I would say probably 1 month ago. The basic thing. Yeah, the basic thing about the storyline in this game is there is no good, no evil. There's a lot of shades of gray, basically, in the storytelling. So everything you personally do, all your doing in the game has a consequence, and also for telling the story. So it was basically amazing to play it and to see. When you play it first, you see it's a basic revenge story, but in the end, it's more than that. It's more about not to losing humanity at itself, and that was pretty strong. And they got a lot of hate of it because also with different topics, because the main character has a girlfriend. Ellie has a girlfriend, and this. Yeah. But it was an amazing experience for that.
Well, I mean, the one thing I like is, I still, even though I've progressed in my career to like, being more of like a producer and a lead and leading teams, I love doing the environment art and seeing this progression of story, because having a strong story makes my job easier, because I can work with the narrative director and the story writers and all, and the game director to really figure out these places and these locations. And there's an actual reason why someone's going to this location, because it helps them progress through the story this way, or they're going here to find that. There's more depth and more purpose. And then whenever you have more purpose, I think it makes things more grounded. And then when things are more grounded, there's this, you get kind of immersed into the story, like the gameplay experience becomes, you're truly immersed. Like there isn't, you don't feel like you're playing a game, because you feel like you're helping interact and push the story forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes totally sense. I got a question for your work about in Epic Games, at Epic Games. How is the workload at Epic Games, and do you have a lot of crunch time? Is there a lot of crunch time in Epic Games?
I got lucky.
You got lucky, okay.
I got super lucky. So my work on Epic Games is more on the education side, and
Okay.
I love it because I'm in this weird area where it's like I get to see some of the production and see some of the new technology and see some of the education. Like I'm in this weird junction point where I'm not necessarily crunching like I was in actual development, but it's more or less I'm working with people at various studios who are pushing the engine and the technology as far as they can, and then we're trying to basically create content that can be given away as learning content, but also, so we're trying to learn more about the engine, and then talking with people at different studios inside of like different roles, like lighting artists, level designers, and all that stuff. And for me, my crunch is different, because there'll be times where we have to create content for specific events, or we have to get a number of courses done, or we're doing some training or something like that. But I enjoy it because I don't have to actually do development anymore, in sense of like I remember working on like the crunch I've ever really dealt with. I mean, there is crunch in video games, I'm not gonna lie, but it depends on the studio we're with. And I like to pride myself, when I was a lead, I prevented crunch because we were just having fun. And then even when I worked at Disney Interactive for a long time with some really great people that I worked at Disney Interactive later in my career. And ironically, I ended up working with a bunch of people that I had worked with previously at other studios. Because that's the thing, that when you work in visual effects and game studios, you're going to bounce around studios and you're going to see, hey, I know you. Oh, we work together. So obviously you don't want to be that guy that's just like a jerk to people, because you will see them again. And at that point, we were all older in our career, and we had gone through the trenches, and we've done huge crunches on our own at separate teams, to the point where we're like, when we were at Disney, we literally, I think one day we worked 2 hours late in 4 years.
Okay.
And at Epic,
that's not much.
yeah, well, it's because we knew what we were doing. We knew how to plan it. And at Epic, I'm in a producer role, so I'm still creating some content because I can, but my whole thing is working with scheduling and making sure my team is all functioning correctly. So I don't really crunch, because I pride myself on having good communication, and being very clear with what I want my team to have delivered. So if you have that and you're realistic with your goals, then the crunch isn't really there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's unavoidable, but I try to avoid it as much as I can. I haven't had bad crunch in like 10 years, thank God.
Okay, Moses. So
Yes.
let's take back to the general topic. What do we say is also, from your perspective, important to have this personal connection as a gamer to a character, to the personal background story of this character?
Well, it depends on, first of all, your liking towards certain games. I mean, some people, they like The Sims. They like to really get into these characters and have an entire world. There are others who like games like Street Fighter, where it's more about having a knowledge of all the combos,
Yeah.
This competitiveness for knowing certain combos for characters. And as that developed, the 3D effects and the technology, the pressure that has been put on graphics cards over the recent years has just been amazing. That connection between a person and this character in gaming. I could go back to NBA jams.
I love NBA Jam.
Who did not want to be Clyde Drexler or Michael Jordan? Or characters that could do some astronomical dunks. Who was the guy? Can't think of his name right now. Just anyone who could do like flip over dunks and stuff like that. I can't really come up with his name right now, but
I know what you're talking about. We had because I worked at Midway, and then that's where when Midway made NBA jams, so they just had like the arcade area, which is lined with it, and then sometimes you hear the guy that he's heating up. That guy, I forgot what his name was. He would actually come visit the studio a lot to do other voiceovers. You'd hear him in the distance just going to people's office saying that
he's heating up. Yeah. Yeah, it's a smorgasbord of ideas that go into it, and to have a development team who can basically filter out the demographics of who's going to agree that this character is worth putting in this game, who's going to identify with these characters, male and female. I think for a long time there were I would say the feminine demographics felt a little bit closed out from certain games. And now we have more female characters that come in Sonya Blade or Sonya from Mortal Kombat. You go into Wonder Woman, all these new video games, Lara Croft. This was a strong figure for our female gamers, that she could also be in a position to take on this normalized male role of Indiana Jones, when you want to see it like that. Yeah.
Okay. So Justin, we're witnessing now a change in the industry, especially because we're gonna have 2 launches this year of 2 brand new consoles in this generation, PS5 and Xbox One Series X. How are influencing the new technical possibilities telling a story in the game? How deep could a player immerse in the game in the future?
It's always interesting because this is something I never really thought of when I was growing up. When I'd see new console transitions, I was just like, oh, cool, look all the new tech that's coming out. But ironically, every single time there's a new console transition, new tech is revealed, and there's a lot of studios that end up closing because they just can't keep up with the tech, which is interesting to me. But the ones, because they'll invest too much into something they don't understand. So I'm hoping, Rockstar Games did this really cool, like super simple outlaw table tennis, like when Xbox 360 and PS3 came out, which is super small, but it was a proof of technology to see how the tech worked, and they actually used that to help fund the development of the other content. So I'm hoping that people might gear towards this episodic content idea, just to see how well HBO and Netflix and Amazon and Hulu are doing with their. I feel like I enjoy watching shows more than movies these days because there's a lot of potential to grow a character, see other, like you have more of a time to pace things out. So I'm curious to see. And I think I know of some studios are doing this, but I can't really say. Just more episodic content. So someone can actually, like, as a game player, you can purchase like these shorter bursts that will all string together to create a longer narrative. And like instead of you playing like a 25-hour long game, you have like these shorter ones that you're like, oh, cool, this is awesome. I can't wait till the next one. I think the technology, especially with Unreal 5 coming out, and just seeing how Unreal 5, there's two things that's going to make Unreal 5 off the bat visually help with storytelling. It's their ability to have way more triangles. So it's like just being able to have more content and like the interactive dynamic global illumination. So lighting actually, it leads someone down a progression path, and that's going to help tell a story because it is kind of like a moth is drawn to light. So as a character, so as a player. So that will always drive that. Plus the I don't know if there's this new technology that's called like nanite, which is going to really help with that because of the amount of geometry we can put in the scene. And for me, the more geometry you can put in there, that's the more details that if I'm someone walking around like an apartment and say it's abandoned, I can actually have more memory now to add those little details. That's going to give me more of an idea of who lives here. Is there clues? Has something happened? So I can tell a story without actually having anyone talk or tell the story. And then having that, the lighting is huge because it drives the mood. Like right now, the clip that you're showing, it's all dark. So that person that's walking through, they're going to have a little bit of apprehension. They're going to walk slower. They're going to look over everything as opposed to maybe like just running straight down. So it does build the mood and intensity of what's going on. And then even the new audio stuff, like they have this thing called Convolution Reverb, which is basically like, it's like real-time reverberation of the acoustics. So like when you're in a cave, for example, or if you're in a hallway, the sound's going to bounce like the light would. It's going to bounce like it might would in real life. So it will absorb into more like porous surfaces like carpet or whatnot. But if it's like all hard cement walls, or if it's just a giant, huge cave, you hear the echoes. And if I'm someone, and I'm excited for horror games, to be completely honest with you, because the technology is really leading up to that. Like the increased lighting, the increased being able to hear something. So if you're like in this creepy house and you can hear maybe something upstairs, but the sound is traveling so accurately that it's going to make you walk slower, or you're going to, I don't know. The visuals are going to, in my opinion, like the storytelling is just going to get even better, and to the point where maybe we don't have to talk as much in the actual game, because the visuals and the audio are going to basically tell the story as well.
Yeah, it's more about generating feelings then to get like this mood, certain feeling, the mood from the player when you say, especially about lighting. I'm pretty impressed by Unreal 5. I saw the video, and we're gonna see what's happening.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Next year when everything rolls out, I wish I could say more on it. But I will say that video talks.
You're not allowed. It's a shame.
I'm not allowed. But the video itself, like what they shared, it speaks volumes. And I will say, and I'm not trying to kiss my company's butt, but I am, because they do everything so well. Like the Unreal Engine's amazing, but they give it away for free. And on top of that, we're giving you education free. And on top of that, we're giving you a platform to either sell the content you make on it or even sell the game that you're making with it. So it's like they're trying to create this thing that's actually going to support this new like generation of content development and storytelling. But yeah, I'm really excited for scary games, horror games.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
We see it in your eyes.
Yeah, we see it in your eyes. You're pretty. So, hopefully, maybe a Dead Space 4. I'm waiting for it since 7 years. So.
I wouldn't put that past them. I mean, like Dead Space. The one thing I loved about Dead Space, if you like, Glenn Schofield, who created it back in like 2007, he just did it because he wanted to make something that was like, he loved Event Horizon, he loved Resident Evil 4. His team just loved the audio aspect of things. And that's the one thing I think is going to happen more. We're going to see a more increased attention to audio design and like these like the more interactive soundtracks and ambient design that's going to come in, because it sets the tone.
Yeah. Moses, what do you think when we saw it now? This impression also from Unreal 5. Are there still limits or technical boundaries, or can we now expect limitless storytelling through visual creation? I think we're going the next step. Is there still a limit for that?
Well, based on the look in Justin's eyes, I think there is no limit. When we look at how fast we've advanced as mankind, think of it.
Yeah.
The first man on the moon, 1963, or man in space. Then we moved through all the technological advancements within the last 40 years. And here we are since, I would say, from the year 2000 to 2020. In these last 20 years, what we've been able to create has been compacting the graphics cards, the memory, the speed of the CPU, RAM, processing power. It is just amazing. So you give an artist an inch and he'll take a mile. And that's what's happening. People are letting loose. They're unleashing the demons of creativity. We have international communication.
Yeah.
We have the speed of communication. I mean, Justin's
sitting in Chicago right now.
Sitting in Chicago.
We're communicating.
We're sitting in Germany, and we can send an FTP file, or we can send a WhatsApp message. We can send files. We can zip it. We can what? We can use Dropbox.
Yeah.
And so when you have international studios and people on satellite locations all working together, then ideas come together, people move faster, and work gets done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So also interesting fact is you both teaching as instructors at our academy. One is teaching in person, that's you. Justin is teaching remotely. So Moses, for you as an instructor, how is your experience teaching your students?
Well, I'll say it like this. Once I get the roster a day or two before I'm about to enter into a classroom, I'm looking at the names, I'm looking at the faces, and I'm trying to see how can I impact these students, because these are people who I don't know. What can I do once I arrive into the classroom? What can I do to access them as students, to access their creativity? And the thing is, I walk inside, I introduce myself, and I explain to them what storyboarding is. And then I ask them to introduce themselves, so that I can get a little bit of feedback on who are these individuals in front of me. On top of that, having a classroom environment and I'm able to move and mingle amongst them is great for hands-on activities. When you can take a pencil and you can make a quick sketch in front of someone. Maybe, with PIXL VISN, they come from all walks of life. You have people who have had previous courses in drawing. You have some people who are just interested in gaming and they need to fulfill certain requirements in order to reach the goal of becoming a model designer or working in lighting. And where I capture them in storyboarding, the Storyboarding 100 class, I say, here, it's your first semester. You have a portfolio at the end where you basically need to have all your projects polished as much as possible. Devote the time for each course. And that's that storyboarding is your life spiel that I always announce. Give yourself the time to work on your projects. And if you have questions, speak with us. We here at PIXL VISN, we are accessible. I mean, Justin is there, but I'm sure if you write him an email, he's going to answer. Being devoted to the students is what we're there for. So I've always been able to create an environment where I've given the students a feeling that if they don't completely understand something, that we can work it out, And the first thing I do, because I don't know any of them, as an artist, and whenever I would sell a painting, someone would say, well, I couldn't even draw a stick figure. What do I do in storyboarding? I start them, Justin, with stick figures. Stick figure animation.
That's awesome.
That way they don't have any judgments of themselves.
No pressure.
No pressure. Become a child. Don't forget the child as a student. Bring that child, those characteristics of being carefree, bring that into art. That's what we need. We need people who are ready and available to just let go and let it out.
To spread it out.
Yeah. And so that's what I try to present as a mentor. That's what I try to present each day when I engage those students, to give them my 110% and even more on top of that. Yeah.
So Justin, you're living in Chicago and you're unfortunately not here in Germany, but you're also teaching remotely at our school. How is your experience and what's exciting about to pass your knowledge to our students?
I mean, I'd like to be in Germany right now, I'm not gonna lie. Moses, you made the right call. It's interesting. I enjoy working online because even before COVID, I was always traveling. So I work with the rookies. I'm their creative director, and so I work for Heavy Metal, which is a comic book magazine. So whether I was doing that or Epic Games I was always traveling to different states, different countries, different studios, different schools, and that allowed me to see a lot, learn a lot, build my connections and network, and make sure that what I'm teaching is exactly what's needed. When I teach online, obviously the biggest thing is that I'm not there in person. And I have been to PIXL VISN once, and I taught in person. I liked it. It was great. I love teaching in person. yes, obviously I wish I was in person now, but this is the only way I can really work with PIXL VISN. And I generally enjoy what the school does. I think the school's got a great outlook, and seeing what we do with the rookies, like it constantly moves up each year because the student quality is just going.
Yeah, it's raising.
So yeah, it's crazy. It's raising up. But for me as an online instructor, I like it because as much as I'm not in person, and that's huge. What Moses does is huge. I also have to have them realize that, hey, you're come the post-COVID world. Remote learning, remote meetings, like you working in a different city, in different studio, this is how it's going to have to be.
Yeah.
Because it's not just because for safety reasons, it's because a lot of these studios that have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on spaces are like, holy crap, we don't need to do this. We function just fine without it. So you're going to see a lot of transitioning. So the biggest challenge for me is to try to get someone who has not met me, who's never worked with me in person, to get excited like I'm excited about a topic that they don't know. And for me, I don't like to. I like to function in a way where I like to keep the kids, like I say kids, the students' minds open, not closed. So I feel like when someone's got a closed mind, it's a very American attitude, which just means you're overwhelmed, you're anxious. I just need to get my tasks done. Unfortunately, it's kind of what Americans are known for. I want to be more open, so like you have a problem and you can just sit and relax and chill with it, which I've always found is more of a European. And like the times I've worked with anyone in Europe, they always are like, they're very more casual. They're more like, I will work and chill and think about this, which is, in my opinion, why you've seen so much great art come from there, because there's this willingness to be open to creativity. And, I'm hoping it comes and changes all around the world more. But when I talk to my students, I want them to be more open to sticking with an idea and not put this pressure of it. Everything has to be perfect off the bat, because no one's amazing at the tech. So even if I have a student that is terrible at the tech, because I've been terrible at the tech, and the reason why they're terrible is just you're not grasping it as fast as you can. I would say is take a step back, like control the things that you can, like your communication. When you submit things, are you paying attention to directions? Because those are things that are key in any industry. So maybe you may not be the person who's actually creating the textures, for example, but if you know the process, and you still struggle, but you're the person that's like, hey, I got this. I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to, make sure everything's submitted. I'm going to help people get across the finish line. You're a huge asset to that team. There's a spot for you in every single studio. So for me, when I'm teaching, I want to make them understand that the technical skills are huge. The creative, like the more traditional ones of understanding like design theory, composition, color theory, and how that is applied to texturing is even bigger. And even the stuff that Moses says is the biggest, in my opinion. Being able to give characteristics to an inanimate object is huge. I think that's one of the biggest things I grabbed when I'm in like 2005 when I was working at Midway. I was working with this amazing art director he worked on like all the Lord of the Rings stuff. He worked on like Star Wars, and I made this broom, and I thought I'm like, this broom is awesome. This looks great. And he looked at me and was like, this is crap. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, you asked. But then he started to explain it. He's like, where did the person grab it? Where did they always sweep it? Maybe some of those bristles came off and they had to retie and add new ones. Like, you're adding these little details that someone may not notice, but it's if you as an artist, as a student, can put that type of care in every single thing you create, then when you go to apply to all these studios, they're not going to worry about what you can and cannot do, because they're going to be like, that attention to detail and care, they're going to bring into every single asset that they make for us. And they're going to be like, you get a job. So for me, it's not about how much content they create. It's the quality of the content they create. And it's not about them being the first to understand something. It's them having fun and not being scared off, and taking the pressure off of them so that they feel like they can try and fail, and enjoy themselves, because no one is amazing at this off the bat. If they were, then schools like ours and jobs like mine wouldn't be as like hard to get, because everyone would be doing it. So yes, there is a learning curve, but and the hardest thing from teaching remotely is I find sometimes students are quiet and shy, so it's like I will try to use my American humor to get them out of their shells, and sometimes it doesn't go over that well. But
get them in the comfort zone. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, and I get it. It's weird. I mean, you're in school. It's remote, and you don't. It's hard to. I love sarcasm because I feel like it's the sarcasm is great. It helps break the tension in a lot of situations. But if you're not someone who's met with someone and it's a different culture altogether, and you're trying to use sarcasm to break the ice, sometimes it doesn't work. But I try to add humor. I think if you use humor in education, it makes the students think you're more approachable. And I do want them to always feel like they can hit me up on email or Discord or anything and feel like they can ask me questions, because that's the reason why I love teaching, is because I generally love what I do. And if I learn something, the first thing I want to do is show someone. And because I get excited, and I want to have students feel the same thing. Like if they learn something, maybe I'm not there in person, but I want a student to turn to the person next to them and be like, oh yeah, I can help you with that. Because I think me teaching the content is not the main thing as well. It's also, like Moses said, teaching the students to become, like, realize you're always going to be on a team. Be like, it's not being a better person, I would say. It's just realizing how you fit in with a team. And your team right now is your class, and your class is the studio is the school is your studio.
Yes.
So. Yeah. Moses, so could you give us or can you give young students, young artists an advice or future artists an advice? What will you say when they finished here? What is your advice for them?
Well, I would say before they even come here, they should always try to do what they love. You have to have a love for art, because nothing moves in those programs, in the 3D animation programs, unless you move it. Unless you have the insight of what you want to create. What's the story behind it? Why does this exist? What will it do? What will it perform? What is the end goal? Yeah. For students who approach academies like PIXL VISN, they need to have that burning desire to want to become an innovator. That's what I'm working on with my students is, they're not just there to learn storyboarding. I tell them storyboarding is your life. So just as Justin was saying, I get them in there, I go through the first few projects, and then I say, okay, now we're going to do a group project. No, we're going to make 3 groups, and we need a project manager. We need a project manager. We need someone who's going to be the presenter. We need someone who's creating the logo, and look at what your budget is going to be, what materials you're going to have, because this is not a classroom. This is real life.
Yeah.
This is real life, and if you're not preparing here and now, when you're finished, it's going to be out in the blue,
overwhelming.
Big
sitting
cow
there.
eyes, and you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So here with your peers, is where you get the chance to dive into deep waters and try out things. And just as Justin was saying, this ambition to really develop yourself in these partitions of your life is key for getting accepted by these certain studios, because they're looking for the ones who can work on the details. They're looking for the ones who have a peripheral, a wide view for the things that need to get done. And you don't have to be perfect. It's, are you keen to what's necessary? Do you have that? So what I can say for students who are going to finish at PIXL VISN and academies of the like is, have you pushed the limit? Have you pushed yourself to the limit? With PIXL VISN, they get 15 months. Have you pushed to the limit? And at PIXL VISN, they do. They definitely give their all.
I will prepare you.
They definitely give their all. The instructors are working on it. I see it. We're in this environment together, and I see in the students and in their portfolios how intensified they've worked over the time. Even if they've come from not having so much knowledge about what's going on, or those who have come from other fields and decided, now I want to get into 3D and gaming and so on and so forth, and how they generated the assets and the prerequisites for studios that they will be applying for in the future. This is just a huge pool of knowledge that they have access to. With PIXL VISN, of course, you get some of the latest software to work with.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, if I had that back in the day, if someone was putting this all in front of me, I would just eat it up.
Yeah.
So I can say, for all the students who are interested in 3D animation.
I would say you unleashed you demons then when you get the opportunity.
Yeah, of course.
You creative demons.
Yeah, of course.
Like you mentioned before. Okay, Justin, maybe let's give us a final thought about, have you can you give us an idea or what's important to become a good 3D artist? What skills you need to be successful in this industry?
Be flexible.
Okay.
I think I think, you know, a lot of students I see, like even younger people, you know, you have to work hard, but you also have to have balance and flexibility. So, you know, balance being, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people when they get older, you realize that a lifetime of sitting down and using your hands like this, and then you realize that, oh, these are the money makers, and this is my money maker. Like, you got to take care of that. So your physical and mental health, like walk, eat, take good care of yourself. I'll have students in person, because I'll teach in person at schools, that like look like they're falling asleep in class, and I'm like, why? Like, drink Mountain Dew and play video games till 4 a.m. No, like, 7 to 8 hours a day, sleep. Like, do some yoga, take care of your hands, eat a well-rounded diet. And it sounds like counterproductive, but that's your fuel. And if you want to be able to create a lot of like good content and problem solve, you need to take care of your mental and physical health, but also just needs to be flexibility and balance. So when I say flexibility is because you might be working on something for like 3 months, and someone might come in and be like, all right, we're scrapping that. And I've seen people be like, what? And throw tantrums, or if a file crashes, they'll throw tantrums. It's like, no, relax, take a deep breath. It's not the end of the world. If you lose work, then now you know, back it up. You have to redo it. You're going to do it better. You're going to do it faster. And if someone tells you that you have to redo something at a job after you were working on it, ask yourself, did I get paid? Yeah, and you will get paid for the rework. Mm-hmm. So this flexibility and taking a step back and realize that you are part of a larger team, and that a lot of times your ideas may not be listened to. It's not because they don't value your input. It's just you're part of a team. There's like hundreds, sometimes over almost like 1,000 people working on a team all around the world, and they have a singular goal, and you have to be flexible with your role within it. And if you take things personally or to heart, you're going to just become this ball of anxiety and anger. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of, you'll cross paths with people several times in the industry, like different studios, visual effects, video games, architecture. You'll see them all again. And the reason why I think I've been able to be so successful in my career is I'm pretty laid back. I work hard when I need to work hard, but I'm also like, I ask myself, if something happens, you know, is this something I did? Is this something I can improve? And if it's something that I can't improve, or it's something that I didn't do, it's like, oh, right. Is it worth getting upset or angry about? Like, what does that change? It changes nothing. And you have to take your kind of this like attention you have, like this, like, I want things to be like this. Just take a step back. Even with teaching, it's like you may walk into a class and have these certain expectations for a school, or like what you think is going to happen. Be casual, be flexible with it. And not everything's going to come out the way that you want to in life. But if you have that tenacity and passion and like that balance and flexibility, things might, you know what I mean? You can't wait for things to happen. You have to go after them, but be flexible, just be chill.
Okay.
It's like wax on, wax off.
It is. I mean, like, if you, and that's the big, and this is something that people are going to hate to hear. When you get done with all this crazy work that you're doing at school and you go get your first job interview, they're going to contact you via your website or whatever. Maybe it's because you saw them at a convention, because they like your portfolio, because they like your skills and all stuff. But when you go and you pass that first phone interview and you go in for the in-person interview, if you're a ball of nerves, or if you're very like opinionated, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying you can't have opinion, but if you're like this, oh, things have to be like this, they can tell, and you think they're going to work with you. No.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just be relaxed and have fun and be open. And Like if someone tells you to do something that's outside of your role, like I've had to work on characters, I've had to work on animations, even though like maybe that my role didn't ask for it. It's like, heck yeah, I'll do it because I genuinely enjoyed what I was doing. So just, yeah, be zen, be, life's too short to be like a ball of nerves, and these jobs are too fun to be upset.
Yeah. And one thing I'd like to add to what Justin is saying and being flexible is, over the course of, I would say, the last 15 years, we look at how Adobe and Macromedia were fighting, and how Adobe took over. And if you weren't on the Adobe, if you weren't an Adobe fanboy, then what were you going to use? And we look at Adobe Creative Suite now. If we go back, and I know you probably remember Alias Wavefront, right?
Oh yeah.
Ooh!
Back in the days.
Yeah, Soft Image, Alias Wavefront, then Maya came in and took it over. And now, I mean, in another scenario, being flexible, learning those softwares. Or if we look at not just takeovers, but when we see Disney and Pixar, how things merge, be willing to allow that flow to happen, being a part of that wax on, wax off, I'm still in it. And this world, this creative zone that we're in, we have to let it breathe, really. Yeah. And just stay on top of the newest things that are coming out, because in this environment, we don't get old. We don't get old. We get better. We become more informed. We become more involved, like the $1 Million Man, the $6 million man, the Bionic Man,
Yeah. Okay.
And that's why it's important to like rest your hands and like take care of yourself, because you can be in your 60s and 70s and still doing this. It's not like you're outside doing construction. Like I can be chilling at my computer and be like, I'm making that game I finally want to make now.
Yeah.
Okay. So the important advice we took from Justin right now is be laid back, be relaxed, be calm. So Justin, thank you so much for the very interesting insights in video games and working video games. This was a pleasure also to give us a glimpse what's happening with Unreal 5. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's gonna crush everything next year. But we will see. Also, thank you very much, Moses, for your time to give us a little bit more about storyboarding. How important is a story? So the advice we can give everybody: Storyboarding is live.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, liebe Gamescom-Zuschauer, wir bedanken uns sehr, sehr herzlich fürs Zuschauen. Wir hatten jetzt 2 Tage voll mit Streams. Das war jetzt unser letzter Stream für heute. Wir hatten einmal den Character Jam als Stream gehabt. Wir hatten einmal 2 Lumi-Talks mit Jens Wisser und Daniel Schwarz. Wir hatten einmal 2-mal Studentenprojekte von unseren Studenten, jeweils vom 1. Term bis zum 5. Term. Alles könnt ihr euch noch im Nachhinein nochmal ansehen, wenn ihr nicht die Zeit gehabt habt, das Ganze live auf YouTube live zu verfolgen. Das ist auch weiterhin auf unserem PIXL VISN YouTube-Kanal verfügbar. Schaut da gerne rein. Wenn ihr euch für die Ausbildung interessiert, ihr könnt euch gerne bei uns unter pixelvision.com melden. Dort kriegt ihr einmal alle notwendigen Informationen über unsere 15-monatige Ausbildung. Es gibt die Möglichkeit, uns per E-Mail zu kontaktieren. Da kommt ihr direkt in Kontakt mit mir oder meinem Kollegen Dominik, ist beratung@pixelvision.com. Wir haben hier zur Gamescom einen Discord-Channel, also wenn ihr dort Fragen habt, stellt gerne Fragen in den Discord-Kanal. Wir haben Instagram, lasst uns ein Follow da, da kann man halt auch sehr, sehr gut sehen, welche tollen Studentenprojekte wir haben, wie so die Schule an sich ist. Und natürlich haben wir auch YouTube, lasst hier einfach ein Follow da, einfach den Daumen nach oben, einfach ein Like da lassen. Ja, das war's. Ich hoffe, wir sehen uns 2021 vielleicht wieder live auf der Gamescom vor Ort in Köln-Deutz. Das ist natürlich nochmal eine Ecke schöner. Trotzdem hat der Livestream sehr, sehr viel Spaß gemacht. Wir haben heute als auch die vergangenen Tage sehr, sehr viel über 3D-Animation, Visual Effects gelernt. Ich hoffe, es hat euch gefallen. Die Kontaktmöglichkeiten habe ich, wie gesagt, genannt. Ansonsten nochmal ganz kurz. Wir haben eine tolle Broschüre, die kann man sich auf unserer Website einmal runterladen. Man kann sie sich auch kostenfrei online bestellen. Wenn ihr Bock habt, ist komplett unverbindlich. Schaut gerne rein, da findet ihr alle relevanten Infos über unsere Ausbildung. Man kann sich 4-mal im Jahr bewerben. Wir starten im Januar, wir starten im April, wir starten im Juli und wir starten im Oktober. Herzlichen Dank fürs Zuschauen, habt noch eine schöne Gamescom und hoffentlich bis nächstes Jahr.